Thanks for joining in. Thanks so much for your patience. Amazing, amazing. I'll wait for Clorama to get up on stage as well. I think Clorama, perfect. I think you just have to turn on your mic, and then if your camera works, then turn on your camera to get up on stage. But welcome everyone. Okay, perfect. Welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Super excited for today's workshop. I see that, yeah, the day's been going pretty well for those of you who have attended other workshops today. Put it in the chat. I'm curious, how experienced you might be with mixed reality, augmented reality, virtual reality. Maybe you have a headset. Maybe you're a Snapchat girly with the filters or Instagram girly with the filters. Put it in the chat. What's your experience with VR? I've been in VR, or I've loved VR specifically since I got my first headset. Literally, someone gifted it to me right after I graduated coding boot camp, and so I've been obsessed with it ever since. So yeah, really cool field. My sister just got a VR headset, which I tend to borrow. Oh, we love a good borrow. We love a good borrow, especially for an extended period of time. We love to see that. My siblings definitely borrow my headset all the time, which it's always fun to get them in there. I've played some games with them in there. We've played Beat Saber, if you're familiar with that. Super hot. Some experience I used to own an Oculus. Oh man, I hope you get to get another one. They're really, really cool. I've even taken meetings in them before. So a few of you have probably been in a meeting with me before and you saw my avatar and I was in kind of my VR headspace or my VR office space. So really cool. I've viewed some tutorials and live streams. Also been a Snap girly before, of course. Oh yeah, I was heavy on the filters, heavy on the AR filters. Hope to get a headset one day. Hopefully we can make that happen for you. Hopefully, no promises, but we'll see. We'll see. But you're so curious, thinking my birthday gift in 2025. Awesome. Well, I hope today's workshop piques your curiosity even more. Today we have an amazing human being. Someone, honestly, I think we connected literally while I was still in coding bootcamp, or maybe not long after I finished. Clorama, an amazing human being and product manager for currently Google AR and VR. I'll let Clorama, I'll let you introduce yourself and let you take it away.
Hi, y'all. Thank you so much, Darlise, for having me. And I'm really excited to be here. Apologies, I am having Mercury in retrograde is really getting to me today. Woke up with both my laptops, my webcams are not working. One of them was just blocked. I don't know if I dropped it on accident, and then this one is just completely just shut down. It just won't even pick up my camera anymore. And also too, I was planning on walking through the whole mixed reality development experience, which was working fine on my laptop last week. But of course, this weekend and this morning, it was a little bit slow, and this morning it just kind of crashed. And so I won't be able to do the full walkthrough today. But what I can do, and what I'm hoping to do is at least kind of shed some light on the high level of what to expect going in, what I wish I knew going into my first mixed reality project. And I'll provide links on to YouTube where I think they're really great walkthroughs on how to just basically just follow the instructions and are able to develop it yourself. And then I did talk to the team, so hopefully we'll set up once I'm properly set up. I'm also traveling for work and everything, so it's just a little bit hectic on my end. But I'm thinking we could probably set up a better workshop with everything working in January or February. So yeah. In the meantime, I'm thinking we can use this time I'll spend the first 30 minutes just giving a high level overview, definition wise, things I wish I knew, tools to look out for, how to resources that exist to support new developers, as well as to find community. And I'm happy to share my story as well. And then maybe we can use the remaining time. I think that's maybe another 30 minutes for Q&A. I'm happy to answer any questions. A little bit about me. I just started working on the AR VR team, XR team, I guess, at Google. This is my third week now. And prior to this, I spent 6 years at Meta Reality Labs working across a whole bunch of AI and VR, and mostly VR and in the metaverse as well. So I was on the metaverse avatars team for a couple of years. I've helped ship the first Oculus for Business suite solution. I also helped ship the first VR developer tool suite, which I'm excited to talk to you about. And then also helped ship a lot of social features as well. But most of my favorite time is like being able to develop solutions specifically for content creators using our camera platform features, and then also for developers themselves. MetaQuest Developer Hub is one of the tools that I'll talk about as well in this presentation, and just basically happy to speak to what you can expect in the development experience world, like grievances, how not to like be too hard on yourself just because it isn't necessarily an easy space to be in, but it is very rewarding. So I'm happy to talk through all of that. I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation, but any questions or anything in the meantime, or I'm seeing some comments. Excited to learn. Oh, yeah. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and jump into this presentation. And again, please forgive me, the design-wise is not great, given I thought I was going to be able to fix things by today. It didn't seem to happen, so I kind of just put things together. So forgive the lack of a design, but hopefully you guys can all see this. Yeah, I can see it on my end. Hopefully you guys can see it. Great, I see thumbs up. Cool. So let's go ahead and get started. So a little bit about me. Prior to working at Meta Reality Labs the last 6 years, and now at Google, I actually was a VR developer myself. I got my start working in VR coming from grad school. Actually, prior to that, I was actually working in the public sector, building programs for nonprofits, at volunteer programs, and just really, really excited to do community engagement initiatives for different like grassroots organizations, for AmeriCorps for a couple of years. So really enjoyed working with people and building solutions that can help communities feel more empowered, to have higher quality of life. I soon realized technology was such a underutilized space to really helping empower people to take control and ownership of the improvements that they wanted to see for themselves. So I kind of did a career switch when I think it was like 2013. 14, and became a freelance web developer and was building websites for free for nonprofits. And then I decided to do my master's in interaction design, which is where I actually discovered VR. I was looking to solve a problem. VR became a natural solution for that problem that I wanted to try to solve in terms of revolutionizing quote unquote diversity training, making it measurable, providing experiences that can allow people to play games that actually counteract some of the unconscious associations we might have with different traits of identity traits, and reward more inclusive behavior. So I fell in love with VR then, and then spent the next few years, 2015 to 17, building VR experiences for different researchers, and then eventually shipped my own first app onto the Oculus platform in 2018 with funding. So I'll talk about how to do that as well. I can speak to how to ship an app onto an Oculus platform as well, or just any platform. And then also from there, started a company, started working with different companies, enterprise companies, building VR solutions for them. And then in 2019, I joined Meta and was really excited to help build and shape the platform in a way that I felt like needed to support in terms of consumers and how we're going to be using it as developers, as creators, and all that. So that's kind of my journey to this date. This says currently at Meta, but that has changed since the last 3 years. So I'll go to Google. But anyways, okay. So let's talk about first, what is mixed reality? I think a lot of times people are always kind of unclear about the definitions between augmented reality and MR and VR, and especially with every new companies entering the foray, for example, like Apple, introducing new terms called spatial computing. I think a lot of people are kind of confused about, easily can get confused about exactly what the definitions are and what exactly it all means. I think a good catch-all for everything could be extended reality, like just any type of reality that is benefited by virtual elements, digital elements, is essentially a form of AR, MR, VR. AR specifically is very similar to Pokemon Go. It's like if you remember, if you have played Pokemon Go, you know there's a point where you have a ball that's overlaid over your camera, and you can use that to catch you see the Pokemon in the wild. But as you move your camera, the Pokemon is moving with it, so it's not really actually intelligently seeing the virtual object that's in your camera that you're seeing on your screen doesn't actually respond to the physical layout of your environment. And so that is what augmented reality means in that context. When we say VR in the real world, we already know that that just means you're completely, all your senses, or as much as they can be, are engaged in this virtual experience, almost to the point where, and where it scientifically, it really does, your brain really does believe you're in a different space than what you are. So to the point where, like, if you're walking on a cliff in the VR experience, your body will respond believing what your brain is seeing, and not actually respond to the knowing that you're in a safe space on a floor. So that's virtual. It's just full immersion. You're fully immersed, and that means psychologically can be as well. And then we get to mixed reality. And this is where we blend the physics of both worlds, where the virtual reality, the cameras that are using to see your environment, actually can understand what the things are in your environment and help any virtual object that you're interacting with act accordingly. So it naturally blends together. So an example would be, for example, if I'm an AR and I have a ball and I throw that ball is just going to, it's just going to kind of collude or just overlay across any part of my floor. I throw it, it's just going to land wherever. If I'm in MR, the ball will know that there's a couch and a table there. And so when it naturally hits the table, it'll know to bounce and hit the floor. It'll know it'll know where the floor is. It'll bounce off the floor. It may roll to the wall and stop. And to whatever your real environment looks like. And that is when you're actually blending physics. So it'll understand the physics of your layout, your reality, and it'll make sure that VR objects overlaid will react accordingly. So let's talk about some things that I like, what I wish I knew before I started development. How your time will be spent. So a lot of times when people think about VR or MR or any of that workflow is all pretty much similar. But a lot of times people will think that, maybe I should probably send this. Let me actually overlay this. Just realize you're seeing the. Oh, I don't know how to do it. Okay, so that's fine. But basically, so I was going to try to do this in presentation mode, but I actually can't even find the. Oh, wait, here it is. The presentation. There you go. Okay, as you can see, it's been a while. Okay, so make sure you guys can still see accordingly. Yeah, great. So how time is spent. So I thought VR, MR, just developing for the headset would actually be so much more technical, spent all day coding. I thought it was going to be very complex just because you're dealing with so many different inputs. You're no longer on a website where you just have to account for a pointer click. But it's now, or just some typing. Now it's like you have to know where people are looking. You have to know what way they're facing, the different things that they interact with both their hands, or there's just so much to have to take into account when you're building an experience that's going to react to the user's input. So I thought it was going to be mostly with coding and just being that kind of a boring experience for the most part. It's actually quite, most of the time and most of the labor is spent on configuring the different tools. This space is such a rapidly developing platform. There's new things being built in terms of when you're building for hardware, custom hardware. It's no longer a universal standard. When you're building for websites, you're building for a laptop, you're building for a mobile phone. There's pretty standardized rules there that you can leverage as a framework and just build on top of it, build your features on top of that. In this case with VR, the headset itself is evolving. So before, I mean, it's mostly built on the Android mobile device, right? So if you're building for Quest devices, you had maybe one controller 5 years ago that you could use, and it was 3DOF, which means that you can only move your head. You can't really, it doesn't really understand where you are physically when you're walking in that environment. Nowadays, not only do you have two hands, you now no longer really need controllers. Now you have hand tracking. Before, it could only look and see sense the things around you. Outside, now it can not only in terms of like your environment, like in terms of knowing what the ground is and what the walls are, where the walls are, but now it knows what your couch is, what the table is, and it can show that to you while you're playing your experiences in real time. It's just basically, it's the it can now look at the cameras can now look inside and start showing your facial expressions, so you can animate an avatar, if you will, to other people inside the space. It's just constantly there's new things in terms of the hardware, in terms of the software that's constantly improving. This means the tools that you're using when you're developing quickly become outdated on a regular basis. And given that a lot of the resources, the tools that you're using are fragmented, one company will own, quote unquote, a game engine that you use to build any of this technology, while another company owns the hardware. And another company might own like tools that make things more efficiently. A lot of times they don't play well together concurrently in real time all the time. Sometimes they'd have to catch up to one another. And so as a result, as a developer, when you're building for one thing, you configured one thing, it's not uncommon where what you built works really well today, and then next week the game engine launches a new version when now your APIs and the APIs that were used for your hand tracking that you'd gotten working well are now deprecated. And so now you have to use a new SDK or a platform, SDK or a tool or API to take into consideration the new advancements. It's just very much you're kind of like running against, you're constantly running from or updating your stuff. So if you left your project for a month, when you come back, the landscape probably has shifted enough where you're going to have to reconfigure and update APIs and reinstall different things. And so I do think from my experience, I would say the second largest time of your development cycle will be in configuring the tools, the SDKs, managing the new project settings as they advance the technology. Also, the largest time I do think is spent on loading. So as you're installing these new tools, as you're updating them, it just takes time for them all to like set up. Every time you're testing your app, you have to deploy it to your headset to really get a sense of how it works. That means it has to compile all your code and all the new changes you made. And so sometimes just changing one line of code in your app, if your app is like pretty heavy and exhaustive, can take an hour to compile before you can try it out. And that's just kind of like the nature of the space. So why do we do it? Why are people still doing this? I see some rhetoric. Yeah, it is so magical. The pain is worth it. At the end of the day, there's still a lot of community around who support each other, which is very vital to building efficiently. But once you are able to get something working, it can just be really fun and really exciting, where the challenge does feel like it matches the outcome of what you've created. So I do think despite all of this stuff, it's just more so just something to keep in mind, because I think sometimes when it comes to development, we all can be a little bit hard on ourselves and think that it's our technical skills that are kind of holding us back, or is the reason why we're experiencing so many bugs. But in actuality, it is oftentimes, and I've seen this from other people, I've been in the space for a while, a lot of times people are thinking that they have done something wrong on their end, when in actuality, it was just something wrong with the platform. And so this is why it's really important to heavily rely on VR communities that exist, and this includes MR and AR. And I'll talk about those different programs, so that way when you do come across these issues, or other people who have came across it who've already solved it, you can benefit from that or learn different workarounds as well. But that is very vital to like building the confidence. So if you're really excited to build a VR experience, just to protect your confidence, I just want to manage your expectations that it is the field itself, the landscape itself is very, unstable. So while you can still build great experiences, it's just be compassionate if you're running across barriers along the way. So yeah, the good news here is that there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of support to help make this experience as easy as possible. There's a lot of people out there who are really excited about the technology, who are building free solutions that really just make it much more easier to put things together, to build your projects, to create an idea and to put something out. YouTube is a great resource. Just Googling how to build XYZ, you'll see tons of content creators who figured it out, and you can just follow those steps. Reddit. I know Oculus has like a really strong developer community as well. And then there's just frameworks like VRTK, and Unity has an interaction toolkit that you can just download and install into your IDE, your environment, and it'll start. You can get VR working out of the box. And then when I say VR, I also mean MR and AR. The workflows, again, is pretty similar. So let's talk about so building your project. I won't touch on the details of this too much. This is basically an example of when you're going into building an experience, having a clear idea of what you're going to build for and why you're going to build for it can help with preparing for what you design. So I had actually put this slide together for a different group of people who were looking to try to actually solve problems, and it was like for a VR hackathon. I think what a lot of times people go into VR to do is they kind of just go into VR to like they've already have a solution, but they don't necessarily have a problem. And I think something about VR is just really exciting, where a lot of times we want to replicate solutions that are in the real world that actually work, or there might be actually better real world solutions. But we think VR can actually, we kind of over solutionize VR as that, and it's not kind of how it works. And so I do have this slide just to kind of like help you challenge, like when you think about what to build in VR, how to make sure that, especially if it is a solution that you're looking to solve, making sure that the evidence that you're looking for that solution, that VR actually is the best fit. So making sure you understand what your problem is, who your users are, that you're designing a solution for, what challenges they face, and then really looking at VR only when you really feel like it actually can improve or fill the gap of a solution in the real world that doesn't actually exist, and can amplify or scale that solution efficiently. Otherwise, VR just becomes like another, I think a lot of people look at it as a pretty, I don't want to say cliche is not the right term, but it's I think sometimes people can think of a solution that VR doesn't actually really solve for just because it sounds good or sounds sexy. So just really making sure you're doing the thought work of understanding how the value of what this experience can bring to the solution or the problem that you're trying to solve is, I think, something just critical, like everyone should really consider before jumping in. Unless you're just learning to develop, then that's fine. But yeah. VR doesn't solve for everything. I'll just say that. Okay, so then when you're building for VR, there's two different types of end games that you might have. One, you just kind of you have an idea that you want to test out. You think that would be cool in VR or MR. Or you already have a really strong solution that you've already tested in the real world. And so therefore you kind of just want to build the thing. You just want to build a thing and you're ready to ship it to a platform like Steam or Oculus, or like App Lab. Then that's when you want to think about how you want to, what tools you want to use. So for example, if you're just prototyping something and you just need to build a world, and you kind of want to see how people react to certain things, maybe you want to build like a therapist solution where people can go in and have therapy sessions in a safe space. You might not need a game engine for that. You might just need like a world creating app like Horizon Worlds or VR Chat, which already exist, that give you tools to build the worlds. They give you assets like a table, multiplayer features, where you can just make it public, and so anyone on the platform can join that world. And then maybe you can generate private links, and that those links are only for your professionals that you've hired to support people on the platform to provide free therapy to use. So that way you can like kind of curate who enters and who plays what role. Horizon Worlds, things like that are much more, I would recommend better funnels for pipelines to develop for, rather than, and again, you're not using any code for these experiences. You're more so just using the tools already inside VR, and they provide everything for you. You're just building it and putting it together, and you're ticking your toggle boxes and options of how to, as easy as like a calendar invite, for like Google, like how you're setting up, who you invite, generating a link, published to this platform in terms of like the link where anyone can join. It's much more seamless that way, and I would recommend that for like any ideas that are just kind of more simple, in terms of just world building and creating environments for socials experiences. Then there's other things like when you want to actually build a new idea with new mechanics, and like I want to build a chess game, that where each chess piece has like a different animation and a different reaction, where like the person sitting down will will experience like an explosion or something on that, and like these custom interactions, is like deep dive dynamics. I think then that you want to build for, then a game engine becomes really handy, especially if you want it to be available on a broad distribution platform, not just specific to one company like Oculus, but you also want this to be available on a Steam device or Apple Vision Pro, or any other headset. Then a game engine is where you want to design a solution for. So for example, like when I was talking about the Horizon Worlds for prototyping tools, that would work really well for just being on the Oculus platform. However, if you're looking to distribute more broadly than that platform, then a game engine also has that added benefit. Sorry, 1 second. I'm gonna pop this on. I'm gonna plug it real quick. Okay. So let's talk about prototyping workflows real quick, and then we'll jump into the development side. So again, I think platform like apps like Horizon Worlds are great for prototyping. You could just, if you have a device, you could download it for free. There's also other apps like Rec Room and Gravity Sketch. Again, these are just apps that are readily available for you to install onto your device once you have a headset. And once you go in, you can take a tutorial about how to create a world, and you build it while you're inside the headset. And then they might have a off 2D solution for the laptop, which you can then also just follow along. Just to show you how simple it is for those who haven't tried it.
All right, here we are in Oculus.
This is what it looks like when you're opening inside the Quest 3 device, for example, and you're just launching an app to Horizon Worlds.
You can see all my stuff.
So they already have.
I'm gonna go into Horizon Central.
Headset, you can just, it's a portal. You just
it's
click
own
that.
New entrance that's directly available and installed already onto every Quest 3 headset for sure.
And again, like I told you, loading times are pretty normal in this space, so you're gonna wait for it to load. And then once that happens, you'll see. All
right, I'm gonna
the menu, and then from there you'll be able to just create. I think you just click a button for creating your own world. Yeah, so you see it, and it has like a whole like tutorials, and it's just like one click, boom, you have a world, a blank canvas to build on, and then it takes another click to make it public to anybody to be able to enter it. Let's see how we get to the next page. Okay. So yeah, so it looks like basically this. You're building an environment, you have all these tools, you have all these assets that are, again, they're already made for you. You might as well, you can clone, like there are environments that already exist where you can just duplicate it and make it your own. It's very much like community collaborating kind of culture within the VR space, where it's like, even if you have an avatar, someone could potentially clone your avatar if you designed it and then kind of make it their own, and it's just kind of seem as normal to like share what each other's creations. With that said, with each of these objects, it kind of builds on this idea. All of VR is kind of object-oriented programming, which basically means that anytime you have any object in VR, you can attach specific code to that object alone. And every frame, if that object is interacted, will be checked for by the computer to make sure, like, okay, has this object been touched? And if it has been, it'll react in that frame. So yeah, so you can create the behavior for each of these objects, and then again, you can publish it. It's just pretty simple in terms of steps. And this, so yeah, so again, I think a great resource to learn if you wanted to try this out for yourself. Morgan Chin, she is a designer at Meta, but she has a channel that's really amazing for building in Horizon World. Again, it's pretty simple, especially for a designer, or you're someone who's just like, I don't want to really do much deep dive building. I just want to, or like coding, I just kind of want to have these things ready. I want to put things together much more efficiently just to see or get my idea out to life. Then Horizon and prototyping using Horizon Worlds, I think, is a really was one way to do it. Okay, so let's talk about developing for production. So this is like developing your app for the real world, not just for specific app. And maybe it's like you want to have your own company. You want to be able to sell your app to individual consumers who may or may not have a headset. This is just, and then you have like an idea that's so much a little bit more complex and requires much more customization at deep level. You have two options of game engines that are very popular. Obviously, there's more game engine options, but I think these are the two biggest ones in terms of for learning are best to use. You have Unity, which is probably arguably the most user-friendly way. About 80% of content developed for VR is it uses Unity. It has a very strong community of support because it's been around for a while. It's been free for a while. The trade-off with Unity is that you don't get like AAA studio quality as easily unless you know how to kind of like really tweak or pay for licenses that tweak Unity to just for very complex graphics and high quality experiences. So if you're someone who's like pretty technically efficient, you feel comfortable working without as much community support, you just need like, and you're okay with C++ and coding the engine itself to be able to fit your needs, then Unreal Engine is the app you want to use. Or the game engine you want to use, and this is where you'll see a lot more of the high quality development out there in production, but it's not as easy and it's not as free as Unity for getting started. Yeah, so this is a little bit about the UI. I'm going to take a break just to see how you guys do. Yeah, thanks, Darcy, for providing the link. So this is when you download Unity, it's a game engine again. This is the kind of environment that you're going to be working with when you're building for AR, VR, and MR. This is called, this window here where you kind of see your experience is the scene. So whatever you're seeing in this window, the scene window, is what you'll be seeing in headset. And that right now it's done from an angle of like you as the creator, but you can put a camera in there, and once you press preview, you'll be able to see what, if you were immersed into it, what it would look like in the headset. But let's just focus on the UI for now. So on your left, you'll see a hierarchy. So in this scene, you have millions of objects that make up this building. On the left, you'll see a list of every single object in that scene in this hierarchy. And you can click that object and see what is and attach code to each and every individual piece of that. And when you click on that object, so for example, right now, let's say what's highlighted is quote unquote an enemy mesh. So I guess there's like some kind of enemy in there. And I just grabbed these off the internet. So just to show this example. So let's say I wanted to edit one of these enemies to do something different, or to add a code to it that makes it a little bit unique in terms of the behaviors of the other things inside the scene. So I would click that, and then once I click that, you see every single script that's attached to that object. And when I say script, I mean code. It's a text file, and each text file has a different purpose. So you see this first one is mech movement motor. That means that when I click this and open it, I'll see a text file that has code that is specifically designed to say this is how the object will move. This is how fast they'll need to turn, how fast they move, where they should be aiming. It's basically very tedious code. Again, don't try not to be intimidated because much of this stuff comes for free. Most movement is the same if you have a human that's walking around. So there's like one code base that you can just copy and paste off the internet, or that Unity will provide, that you can just drag and drop into this hierarchy, and it'll immediately start working. So I'm just kind of breaking it down in terms of how this stuff works. There's another text file or script on here where it's detailing the health, the speed. So it's like these are all individual lines of code that it'll render or it'll compile or as soon as it is triggered. And it's just all centralized here. So it's really easy to organize as a result for each of these objects. Let's say if I were to click on one of these, so you would click, like there's a little scrolly wheel right here. That scroll wheel UI means you can open up the code base, and so you'll see this. You'll see a text. What do you call these? It's been a while. It's basically, you'll see your files here with the code, and then you'll see what it's made out of. So from there, you can go into the code and you can change the lines of coding. And then you can, anytime you see something like a public, you have your object here and your variable. If it's public, that means it'll be made available for you to edit on the UI here. So you can imagine something on the text file saying public, and then variable name max health equals 150 or something, and then it'll show up here on the UI. It'll pick that up and it'll know to make that editable here without you having to go deep into the code for those simple changes. So without overcomplication, I know I'm sure that sounds very intimidating, but I promise you it's much easier than what it sounds. And again, I highly recommend going to YouTube. So I'm sorry I couldn't do it for you today. Again, like my laptop is just clearly freaking out this morning. I don't know. But it is pretty simple. I highly recommend, I think Dilmer V is my favorite YouTuber for VR development. He does all the latest updates. He's constantly updating based on the new releases of different APIs and SDKs and all that. So he does this full time. But Meta has just recently launched their new SDK. So again, when I talk about deprecating and all that, because they have this Quest 3 headset, because they have new mixed reality experiences that they're offering for the platform, and because it's, they've realized that, development can be a little bit complicated, they've provided a lot of these tools or functions for free. So again, the hardest part of any of this is just installing it into the Unity, into your game engine. But once you have it, once you've installed Meta SDK, you'll see all these icons where you can just click it and it'll immediately add into your project. So for example, pass through, get that working, it'll add it into your project. A camera rig, so you can get that first person perspective. You just click it, it's already in your project. The code is already there. It'll work out of the box. You'll have a room model, which means that it'll, once you add that code, it will be able to read your room. So if you're using the Quest 3 device, it'll access the cameras that are on the device, and that API is literally will know to render your room, render the physics in your room for your game. So that way, when you're building your ball, it'll know to, you can preview your ball bouncing off your couch, off your table, off your window, whatever, in real time. And again, that works right out of the box. You don't have to code anything. It's just literally installing it into your game engine and then clicking that, and then it's in your scene. You'll also get eye gaze, which allows you to know when your user is looking at something, and so you can create a trigger. So if your user looks at the couch, then have fire, kind of have it light on fire. You can create little rules around that, and yeah, it's just pretty seamless. So these are the instructions we would have gone through today. About in terms of opening your Unity project, and it would be a clean slate, like how you would go ahead and go about like just clicking these different things, and then being able to plug in your headset and checking it out in real time, seeing all of that. Coming to the end, I will talk about one thing that's really great while you're developing. If for those who are a little bit more advanced or kind of understand the landscape a little bit, I highly recommend the MetaQuest Developer Hub if you're building for any Quest device. This will allow you to do all of the things that you have to do in device on your laptop. So for example, if you want to see or a change that you've made in your line of code, once you've compiled that code and rendered it, oftentimes you'd have to deploy it to your headset, put it on your headset, and then you can see the code. What you can do with this tool will keep your headset on. So when you press deploy to your headset, you just go to cast device, and it'll launch a screen on your TV, on your laptop, which will basically show you what's happening inside your headset. Or if you want to ship code to your headset, but you don't want to be plugged in, you can just put ADB over Wi-Fi. And so you can send apps to your headset without actually having to plug your device into the laptop. So like a lot of little different things like that make it just really easy to kind of iterate on while you're coding or while you're building your scene really fast using this tool. Again, here's more. I think I can add all of these resources to the chat as well after this. But essentially, these are programs like Oculus Start is a developer program. It's basically, if you're new to Oculus development, Oculus does fund developers. They usually will give them, if you're in the US and Canada, I think they'll ship, once you apply to the program, show them that you're serious about, I think in the application, about becoming a developer. I think there's thousands of developers in this program, maybe 5 to 6 right now. And they'll accept you into the program as long as you can, prove that you have a serious interest in development. They'll send you hardware so you can easily get started, and then you'll have access to a Discord of other developers who are learning, and everyone's at different levels, and you'll be able to leverage that I think it's Discord, Discord channel, to be able to connect with people every day and ask the questions and see what other people are building. Oculus Launchpad is another really great program. So it's, again, targeted towards a little bit more of like people who have built maybe 1 or 2 projects, but are looking to seriously launch something onto the platform. This is a program that accepts about 100 different developers from diverse backgrounds intentionally. And what they do is they put you through a 3-month kind of like a program where you get a boot camp for the first week, and they'll teach you all the things. They'll fly you to the campus, to the HQ for, well, it's no longer Oculus, I guess it's like to Meta. They'll fly you to the office, and then you'll learn from people on the team how to build your apps and how to develop an efficient way for the platform. You'll meet 99 other people who are in the same program, and you'll be able to connect. And then over 3 months, you'll be able to build your app and ship it to the platform. And if they enjoy it, if they like it, they'll select about 10 to 15, every year is a bit different, winners, and they'll fund you to ship to the store officially. Other resources like Unity 3D Learn, unity3.com, they have an amazing learning resource on their platform. So that's why I also will highly recommend them. It's you can take courses. It's a walkthrough of each piece of the session of how to use their game engine and optimize it for your experience. Also with Oculus, they partnered with them to do something very detailed on that. I think Bracky's on YouTube is amazing as well. He does a really good job of teaching C# specifically. So this is the language that you'll use for when you're building your custom interactions. Again, it'll be pretty minimal in terms of what you'll need to code. But when you do code, understanding how to do that, how to build it simply, how to debug the code that you're getting for free from somebody else's thing and make sure that you're able to, that still works and can get updated. I think his channel does a great job of putting you through that. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it. And yeah, I'll leave it open to Q&A. I think I probably, I don't know, I think I went a little bit over time. Oh my gosh, did I go talk for an hour? I'm sorry.
No, it's good. Honestly, like I don't know if you saw the chat, but literally everyone was so locked in and being like, write that down. You know, you were dropping some gems, especially when it came to the resources. And
Okay, good.
people just didn't know that there was like all of these resources out here, especially when it comes to programs that would literally, you know, fund like hardware or fly you out. Like that's crazy. And so,
Yes.
yeah. Don't worry, y'all. We're gonna drop the links in the Discord and an email after this. Like I promise you, you will get these resources. But we
Thank you.
have
Yeah.
a couple of questions. First, what do you think are some transferable skills that would allow someone to pivot into VR, AR from a non-design background?
From a non-design background, it definitely patience. Patience and scrappiness. Like if you know how to YouTube, like if you know how to Google questions, like how to do this, like and that can be very granular in terms of like how to install XYZ, what's the latest frameworks, like just know how to Google, know how to YouTube, how to follow directions. When I got started, I had known a little bit of C#, but I didn't actually even need it for my first two projects because I didn't have to really code at all when I was just prototyping. Like I thought it would be. And I think if you know Adobe Creative Suite as well. If you know how to use Premiere Pro, Illustrator, Photoshop, that's Unity UI. The engine is basically that. So you're just learning a whole new just UI surface that has a lot of the same rules, especially for Premiere. Especially when you're looking at how to animate your objects and all of that, like literally a lot of those key freeze, like a lot of those things are exactly the same. So that's transferable. And then from there, Googling how to build a mixed reality experience, how to build XYZ, and then finding that YouTube video and just following along. That's all the skills you need. I think anybody can learn this stuff. It's just whether or not you have the patience to deal with it, because there will be a lot of barriers and little challenges. So reading through the comment sections of the YouTube video to see what has become broken since the video was made is really important, because somebody else would have answered somebody else's question when they say, hey, the SDK used just got deprecated a week ago. Somebody can tell you like what the new thing to use is. But like, yeah, it's just being able to, I guess, Googling, if you're good at that.
Google is a skill. Between Google or like a Stack Overflow or, I love a Reddit, I feel like you can find anything you need to know in a Reddit subreddit. But it does bring me to my next question of like, do headsets and Taya, let me know if I'm asking the question correctly, but does building for headsets is there not like a standard for that, like a tried and true, or I guess, yeah, a little bit of a tried and true, like, so long as you've met these standards, this is a good product?
I mean, okay. It's always, the thing is, we're so early in the space. Like there's so many new standards that are getting developed every day. So what could have been a standard yesterday was only a standard because we didn't have hand tracking. Now that we have hand tracking, there's going to be a new standard for that, right? What was good for, so it's just like, I think what I would recommend is just playing different games or playing different experiences on your headset and feeling what works for you and what do you feel like will work well for what you want to build in terms of how you want people to use what you build. And then just be open and flexible to like when there's a new update to like a new advancement to like adjusting. And usually a lot of times, sometimes, for example, like once upon a time, there was only controllers, right? You only had 2-hand controllers. And so you had to design around your interactions around that input. Now that there's hand tracking, you now have the option, you can now just like turn it on, whereas before you would have had to recode your app to support the new input style. But now it's like they're building, when they're launching these solutions, they're making it a lot more developer friendly, which wasn't the case 5 years ago. So if you're jumping in, it's a lot better to jump in now, because now they're being a lot more mindful about when they advance things, they're making sure that it doesn't clash with what you built before, but also too, it's more of a toggle switch to turn on, and there's very minimal work that you need to do to configure it or port to update your experience to support it. But yeah, so no, there is no standard outside of just like what your preference is. I'll give you another example. One of the biggest arguments in terms of how you navigate in VR experience, there's something called teleportation. So this was like the standard way. If I am in a VR room and I want to get to the other side of the room, the standard way was to point my controller, which had a laser on one end, to where I want to go into that room on the other side of the room, and click a button, and boom, I show up in that spot. A lot of people hate that. A lot of people hate that form of getting from one place to another, where you kind of just click the spot and now boom, you're there, because it can be jarring for them. There was another method of like, well, I push my thumbstick forward and then I move forward. Now that means that's great if you don't get motion sickness, but majority of people who try VR get motion sickness. So there's still different rooms to play. Like, I don't think there has been a right solution. There's some people who don't allow you to move at all because they don't want to deal with it. And that's a more accessible standard way, where you just build the experience to move around the person without making it. Or, you put blinders. If you're having a flying experience, maybe you'll make the eye, when that person's in motion, you'll blur the out, like you'll kind of black out or circle out the peripheral, so that way it minimizes the body's like motion sickness reaction. But so everyone has different preferences for how to move. So really the standard is just to support diverse needs, I guess. And there's a lot of frameworks that you can use out of the box that will allow that.
That was a great question and a great answer. We have 2 questions and then we'll wrap. The first question being, outside of world building, what other use cases can Unity or any engine be used for?
Oh yeah, you can do 2D. I mean, that is the engine for building games, period. So like 2D games, 2D mobile games, if you want to build a mobile app game, if you want to rebuild Pokemon Go, if you want to build a Candy Crush, Unity will build all of that. If you want to build a game for PlayStation, Unity is a great, will support that. It's just, it could do 3D, it could do 2D, it could do XR. It also can do, I think a lot of times people will build things for movies in there, when they're creating like I think Marvel, or like a lot of these like movies that now are using a lot of CGI. They first start with a game engine and they'll just put a camera in there and they can recreate a whole scene in there and make it hyper realistic using Unity, Unreal Engine. I forget what movies. There is actually, I think it's called Adam something on YouTube. That was literally a movie. Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
I do. And I think another show on Netflix, because it's based on a video game. If anyone's familiar with Arcane, like it's based on a video game, but they made it into a Netflix series. And I think they do the same thing.
Yes, exactly. Arcane, I'm positive, was built by a game engine. It was built in a game engine, and probably Unreal, and maybe a custom, maybe a lot of customization as well.
Awesome. Okay, last question. What do you think are the main cybersecurity risks associated with VR, AR, MR technologies?
Yeah, because of all the input stuff, being able to track where your eye is looking in a space, what your hands are doing, those are, I think, like, obviously if I'm buying something online in a website with my credit card, while somebody could maybe somehow read the screen and see what I'm typing, before encryption, they can't see what my fingers are doing. Like, they can't see the motion of my fingers. So it's like, even if that's encrypted, like they can't see that. Whereas in VR, not only will you be able to type numbers, and that could potentially be one layer of, on a screen, just like in online, for a bad actor to try and capture, but also they can now potentially get access to how your fingers are moving on that screen. And so we can deduce what numbers you're pressing, what letters, what your passwords are. Like, I don't want to scare you, because I do think there's a lot of protection in place at the company level to prevent that from happening. But that is something those are questions today of like, how do we protect? Because it does make it harder to enable really cool functionality if we don't allow developers to have access to what your hands are doing or where your eyes are looking at. But, and so there's questions of like what of those inputs, behavioral inputs, what your room looks like, how much of that gets shared to developers versus how much of that should stay encrypted, or at the at a corporate level where there's accountability for if something leaks, et cetera, just like any other private information that we have all over the place at banks and utility companies and government, whatever. So just it's not much different outside of like in terms of risk. It's just like there's just now other inputs to consider that you didn't have to with just words and typing. But yeah, or what could be socially engineered, I guess. So I think the things that could be that need to be socially engineered in real life to like looking over somebody's shoulder to see the password that they're typing, or taking someone's wallet, or watching that, like that can now potentially be observed in the computer space, or virtual space. So those are the things, but not much bigger than that, I don't think.
Interesting. This was amazing. Thanks so much, Clorama. That's all the time we have for questions, unfortunately, but would love to bring you back in the spring, January, February, because we'll still be doing workshops at that time too. So would love to bring you back and see if we can get our hands dirty a little bit more. And now that we've had this intro, now let's build something, and that would be amazing once you're settled, because yeah.
Yeah. Fair, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you everyone for like being patient with me as well. And I appreciate it. I wish this could have been a lot. I had such a bigger plans for this, but I will make up for it in the next year.
Next year, no worries. Thanks so much for attending, everyone. Like I said in the chat, if you haven't yet, please fill out the survey. If you enjoyed this presentation, let us know how we did. Let Clorama know how she did. We would just love to know your thoughts. And then we do have another workshop happening right now. If you want to hop over, I'll put that link in the chat. And that is the Unlocking AI with No Code. So you'll be working with Gemini, with Amy Russ, another Google Women Tech Maker. So highly recommend that one. I'm about to hop over to that as well. And don't worry, this was recorded. We'll share the links to the resources and everything in the Discord and via email as well. So thank you all, everyone, and have a great rest of your night.